Welcome. Be sure to like and subscribe for more scary stories, or I will come for you. I'd like to thank Jordy for rejoining the Curator's disciples. Your viewership is very much appreciated. If anyone would like early access to my latest stories and an ad-free listening experience, consider becoming one of the Curator's disciples. The link is in the description below. Today's fucked up story is dedicated to Grim Reaper. He is an avid listener who is currently going through tough times. Stand proud, my friend. If everyone in the community could please leave him a positive comment, I would be extremely grateful. I've got your back, my friend. Without further ado, today's story, Trigger Hour, by the Curator. I don't expect forgiveness for what I did. Not from you, not from God, not from myself. But I need to say it. I need someone to hear it, even if it's just strangers online. Maybe writing it down is my last shot at. I don't know. Not closure. There's no such thing anymore. But maybe honesty. Maybe if I spill every rotted piece of this story, I can at least stop waking up in the middle of the night choking on guilt and memory. My name's David. I'm 46 years old, and about a year ago, I watched my son die. And then I did something I can never undo. I used to be the kind of guy who had his shit together. At least on the surface. I showed up to work on time, paid the mortgage early, made polite conversation at barbecues. I worked in construction management for over 20 years, long enough to know which corners get cut and who cuts them. I was the guy who had a plan for everything. Color-coded files, weekend yard work schedules, retirement accounts. Had a house in the suburbs. A wife, Laura, and my boy, Sam. Sam was the only real light in my life, honestly. I know that sounds cliche as hell, but he just had that thing. That spark people talk about, but rarely see. The way he moved through the world, it was like he didn't carry any of the weight the rest of us dragged behind us. He wasn't innocent. Not really, but he was good. Genuinely good. Not because he had to be, but because it was just wired into him. I remember when he was born. It was storming outside, thunder shaking the windows of the hospital room. He came out screaming, red-faced and furious, like the whole world had offended him just by existing. He had this scrunched-up look, like he already didn't trust anybody. Laura and I looked at each other, exhausted and terrified, and then we laughed. I remember leaning over and whispering to him, "All right, little man, I'll help you through it." And I tried. God, I tried. He was the kind of kid who brought stray animals home, even a fucking possum once. He couldn't stand to see something alone or in pain. He used to hug me every single morning before school, even in high school when most kids act like their parents are radioactive. He'd still shuffle down in those ratty pajamas, wrap his arms around me, and say, "Love you, Dad," like it was a ritual. Like the words kept something bad at bay. He used to beg me to take him fishing, even though he couldn't sit still for more than 5 damn minutes. He'd get bored and end up skipping stones or tying knots in the fishing line until it was unusable. But he loved it anyway. Loved being out there. Just him and me, and the trees whispering over the lake. Said it helped him reset. He had these big brown eyes, soft like warm earth, and a crooked tooth from where he fell off his skateboard in 6th grade and refused to get braces because he said it made his smile more honest. He was everything. When he got accepted into university, I cried in the goddamn driveway, not even from pride, though I was proud, more than he probably ever knew. No, it was something else. Something heavier. It felt like watching the door of his childhood quietly swing shut behind him. I knew it was the beginning of the slow goodbye. You know, the one. The moment your kid becomes someone you visit instead of someone you tuck in. But we had this tradition. Every spring, once exams were over, I'd drive up and pick him up for a father-son weekend. Just us. No distractions. We'd head to this old cabin out by Lake Winona. No phones, no internet, just dusty board games, ancient fishing rods, beer for me, and long, winding conversations about life and nonsense and everything in between. He always looked forward to it, always called it his mental detox. Said it helped him shake off the stress of finals and roommates and deadlines. It was our ritual, our way of staying connected as the years pulled us in opposite directions. So when I got the call that morning, "Hey, Dad, I'm packed. You still good to come get me?" I was already halfway out the door. Told him I'd be there in 10. That was the last time I ever heard his voice. When I turned onto campus, something felt off immediately. You know that gut feeling, that primal instinct you can't reason away. My stomach dropped before I even saw the flashing lights. It was like the world tilted a few degrees, just enough to make everything feel wrong. Then I hit the lights. Red and blue strobes bouncing off the brick dorms like some twisted carnival. Yellow police tape cordoning off the intersection. Crowd was forming on the sidewalk. Students with backpacks and phones clutched like talismans, watching like it was just another scene from a movie. And then I saw the shoe. A single gray sneaker, twisted on its side near the curb. Sam's sneaker. He used to joke it was his lucky shoe because it was the one he wore when he passed his driver's test. His bike was crumpled beneath the front end of a campus security cruiser, spokes bent like snapped bones, the frame warped beyond recognition. Blood streaked the metal. On the handlebars. On the pavement. On the fucking grass. And then I saw the tarp. White. Flat. Still. I don't remember screaming, but apparently I did. Loud enough that someone had to hold me back. 2 officers wrapped their arms around me as I fought to get past the tape, screaming Sam's name until my throat tore raw. They kept telling me to calm down, said they were investigating, as if that made any difference. Later, they told me a black SUV ran a red light at full speed. Witnesses said it flew through the intersection like a missile. 3 college-age guys inside, laughing, music shaking the windows. Sam was riding his bike, crossing with the green, totally unaware. They didn't stop, didn't even slow down, just vanished, like cowards. The days after that blurred together like bad dreams. People brought casseroles in foil trays, sent flowers with cards that said meaningless things like he's in a better place and time heals. They all meant well, but I wanted to scream in their faces. He was supposed to be in my passenger seat, not a box in the ground. Fuck time. Time is just a slow march toward forgetting, and I didn't want to forget. I couldn't. The cops told me they were working on it, but the footage they got from the intersection was too grainy. No license plates, no matches from facial recognition. The SUV could have been a rental, a stolen car, or just one of thousands that looked the same. I begged, I pleaded, offered a $50,000 reward, everything I had in savings, and then some. Posted flyers. hired a private investigator who gave up after a month. I started sleeping in Sam's room, curled up on the edge of his bed, breathing in the scent of his pillow like it was oxygen. I stared at the posters on his wall, the school lanyard still hanging from his desk lamp, the pile of laundry he never folded before exams. I was trying to catch a piece of him. Just one. Anything. Laura couldn't take it. She started staying with her sister across town. Eventually, she stopped answering my calls altogether. I don't blame her. Everyone grieves different. Mine just looked a little more like madness. Work stopped caring after 2 weeks. They welcomed me back with thin smiles and condolences they didn't mean. Every time I stepped into the office, I felt like a ghost haunting my old life. I'd catch them watching me out of the corners of their eyes, wondering when I'd snap, wondering how long before I became someone else's problem. Only I stayed stuck in that moment. That 1 second when everything broke. I started doing my own research, got obsessed. I'd show up to campus parties, pretending to be a contractor looking at the electrical work. I'd walk the halls like a fucking phantom, listening, watching, hoping to catch a face, a laugh, a slip-up. I focused on one group of frat boys for weeks. They drove a black SUV, laughed too loud, rich kid arrogance oozing off them like grease. I followed them home, parked outside their house for 3 nights, sat there gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles cracked. But it wasn't them. Wrong SUV. Wrong bumper stickers. No dent on the passenger side like the witness described. Just another dead end in a maze of dead ends. Every time I got a lead, it fell apart like wet paper. So I went deeper. I found forums. Not the Reddit kind. The kind that don't show up in any search engine. You need codes, invitations, or a very specific kind of desperation. Places where people didn't ask for justice, they demanded punishment. They call it the root layer. I posted everywhere, told my story, uploaded blurry photos of the SUV, wrote with the kind of rage that scares even the worst people. My son was killed. I have names, maybe faces. I want justice. I want them to suffer. Most replies were noise, trolls. A lot of sick freaks trying to bait me into nonsense. But one message stood out. Just one reply. I can help you. Justice. No price. No questions. No conditions. Just silence. Until a month later, I got an encrypted message. GPS coordinates. A single line of text. Come alone. You'll get what you deserve. The GPS coordinates led me 4 hours north, deep into the forest. I left at midnight. The house was quiet when I locked the front door behind me, like it didn't care if I ever came back. I packed a small bag, just the essentials. A flashlight, a flask filled with whiskey that had dust on the bottle, and Sam's old hoodie, the one he used to wear on our fishing trips, faded navy blue, a broken zipper, fraying cuffs. It still smelled faintly of him, like lake water and cheap laundry detergent. I don't know why I brought it. Maybe I needed armor. Maybe I needed proof he was real. Or maybe I was just afraid I'd forget the weight of his memory if I didn't carry some piece of him with me. The road narrowed the farther I drove. At first, it was smooth, familiar blacktop, the kind you find in state parks and logging routes. Then, it shifted to patchy gravel, loose and jagged beneath the tires. After an hour, even the gravel gave up. Just 2 ruts in the dirt, carved by trucks older than mine. weaving like veins into a forest that didn't feel like it belonged in this century. Trees arched over the path like a tunnel of bone. Branches scratched at my truck's sides with a sound like fingernails on metal. I turned off the radio an hour in, couldn't stand the noise anymore. It felt like shouting in a cathedral. Eventually, I lost cell signal. No bars, no data, no connection to anything but the map burned into my brain and the pulsing need to know, to see, to finish what had started the moment Sam's heart stopped beating. Part of me thought I was driving to my death, that this was a trap set by sadists or freaks who got off on dangling hope in front of people broken enough to follow a digital breadcrumb trail into nowhere. Maybe they were going to rob me, torture me, or laugh in my face while they filmed it for some depraved little corner of the internet. But I didn't care. What could they take from me that hadn't already been ripped away? Then I saw it. The shack sat hunched in a clearing like a dying animal. Half of it was sunken into the earth, as if the forest had tried to swallow it whole. The wood was warped and split, shingles dangling like loose teeth. One of the windows had been blacked out with garbage bags stapled into place. The other was covered in moldy tarp, billowing gently like a curtain in slow motion. The front door leaned off its hinges. A faint orange glow pulsed through the cracks, low, steady, flickering like candlelight. I killed the engine and stepped out of the truck. The silence was suffocating. No crickets, no frogs, no wind, just the crunch of my boots on brittle leaves and the distant hum of my blood pounding in my ears. Even the trees seemed to hold their breath. I walked to the shack with a kind of slow inevitability, like gravity. I don't remember deciding to open the door. Just the sensation of the handle under my palm, cold and splintered. I stepped inside and saw them. The room was bare, except for a rusted round table bolted into the floor. The walls were stained with mold and soot, the ceiling sagging under its own weight. Chains hung from rusted hooks. There was no furniture, no warmth, just them. 3 young men sat around the table, each locked into thick mechanical restraints. Their right arms were clamped down with metal cuffs that led into articulated bars, like something out of an old industrial machine. Each of their hands gripped a stainless steel revolver. The guns were mounted to the braces, unmoving, cold, and each one was pointed directly at the person to their left. The smell hit me a second later. Acrid sweat, piss, and fear so dense it felt oily in my throat. One of them had wet himself. A dark stain spread across his jeans and dripped onto the floor. Another was shaking so violently the metal around his arm clattered against the frame. The third just mumbled, over and over, "Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck," like he was stuck in a loop. His voice rising and falling in pitch like a child on the verge of a meltdown. Then I saw him. The man standing behind them was silent. He wore a long black coat that brushed the floor, leather gloves, steel-toed boots. His face was hidden behind a full chrome mask, smooth, featureless, reflective. No eyes, no holes, just a blank oval, like a mirror warped by heat. He stood so still I thought he might be a statue at first, a hallucination. But then he moved. In his right hand, he held a machete. It wasn't clean. It was long, curved slightly at the tip, blackened with dried blood and streaks of rust that had eaten into the blade like disease. It looked homemade, raw, steel, and jagged teeth welded into something that wasn't meant to kill quickly. It was meant to ruin, to break a body apart with effort, to savor it. He turned toward me with the slow, deliberate grace of a man who had done this before. And when he spoke, it wasn't loud. It was flat, matter of fact, like a man reading off a receipt. "These are the men who killed your son." My mouth went dry. I didn't respond. Couldn't. My legs locked up and my throat closed. They drank. They drove. They hit him and left him to die. Their actions were reckless. Their remorse is performative. Their lives, from this moment forward, are no longer theirs to control. The kids screamed. One tried to lurch away and tore a chunk of skin from his wrist in the process. Blood oozed out, sticky and red, down the metal bracket. Another began begging, words spilling out like vomit. There was no order to them, just noise, just panic. The masked man raised the machete and gestured to the wall. A countdown timer was mounted above the door, digital, glowing red. 60 minutes. "Every hour," he said. "One of them will pull the trigger. If they don't, I use the blade. That's the rule. That's the penance. You will watch. You will bear witness. Then, when the time comes, you will decide if the game ends with you." He pressed a button. The timer began. Hour 1. They cracked instantly. The youngest, Kyle, looked like he hadn't even started shaving. Maybe 19. Maybe younger. He broke into wet, hiccuping sobs. Said he was sorry. Said he didn't know. Said he didn't even remember what happened that night. That he just wanted to go home. His legs were bouncing. He looked like a kid in the principal's office who still thought his mom might come save him. To his left, Ethan sat paralyzed. His skin was ghost pale, eyes wide and unfocused. He didn't blink, didn't speak. He looked like a corpse already, like he had left his body and hadn't decided if he wanted back in. And then there was Logan. Dirty blonde, jock build, wore a sleeveless shirt that showed off a tribal tattoo on his shoulder. I recognized him. Sam had posted pictures from a party a few months before he died. Logan had his arm around Sam's shoulders in one of them. They'd laughed together, drank together. That photo had been buried in a folder on my hard drive, one I hadn't opened since the funeral. It made it real. They weren't strangers. They were there. They knew him. The timer ticked down. 59 minutes. 58. 57. The masked man didn't move. Just stood behind them like death made manifest. Kyle couldn't do it. When the countdown hit 0, the masked man stepped forward, leaned down behind Kyle and whispered something, too soft for me to hear. Kyle started screaming. No, 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 please, please, I can't. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. And then the machete came down. The first strike landed in the meat of his shoulder. It made a noise I'll never forget, like splitting a watermelon, but wetter. He screamed, high-pitched and broken, and the masked man hit him again. This time, it cracked his collarbone. There was a snapping sound, sharp and awful. Then again, and again. The blade didn't cut clean, tore. Flesh peeled back in ragged flaps. Blood sprayed across the table in arcs. Kyle shrieked until he couldn't anymore. Then it was just gurgling. Then choking. He didn't die quick. 10 blows. 15, 20. Chunks of his body came off like butcher scraps. His face wasn't even a face anymore, just pulp and teeth. Blood soaked the floor, the walls, the restraints. It dripped off the edge of the table like a faucet left running. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My body had gone numb. My ears rang. My vision tunneled. It felt like I was underwater, watching something through thick glass. The masked man reset the timer. 60 minutes. Turned toward Ethan. Hour 2. Ethan snapped. His whole body convulsed. Sweat poured off him like he was melting. He didn't wait. As soon as the buzzer buzzed, his arm spasmed. Bang! The revolver went off. The shot rang through the room like a firecracker in a church. Logan's head exploded. Literally, the bullet hit his temple and blew out the opposite side. His skull cracked like porcelain. Brain matter and bone dust hit the wall behind him. He twitched once, then fell sideways, dead before he hit the floor. No scream, no last words. Just a twitch, a slump, and silence. Ethan curled into himself, sobbed like a baby. I didn't want to. I didn't want to. I had to. I had to. He was gonna kill me. He was gonna... The masked man didn't speak. He turned, looked at me, and pointed to the 4th chair. I didn't want to move. My legs refused. My chest seized. But something dragged me forward. Grief, rage, inevitability. I sat down. The restraints clamped down around my arm. Cold steel kissed my wrist. My hand was forced onto the grip of the last revolver. It was heavier than I expected. I looked across the table. Chris, the driver, the one who floored it, the one who killed my son. His eyes were wide. Tears poured down his face, but not the kind that come from guilt. These weren't tears for Sam. They were for himself. Please, he said. Please, man. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. We were drunk. We were stupid. We freaked out. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just a kid. Please. E was maybe 21. I stared at him, and I heard Sam's voice, clear as day. I'm packed, Dad. You still good to come get me? I pulled the trigger. Bang! Chris's head snapped back like someone had yanked a string. Blood and bone sprayed the ceiling. His jaw hung loose, connected by a strip of meat. He slumped forward, face first into the puddle of red soaking the table. I waited. Waited for justice, for relief, for peace. But there was nothing. No sound, no lightness, just silence, just the same ache. The masked man said nothing. He turned, walked to the door, and without a word, vanished into the forest. I was alone. Alone in a shack full of corpses. Blood, bone, gristle, memory, and the weight of what I had done. I don't remember walking back to the truck. I don't remember turning the key in the ignition or shifting into drive. All I know is that by the time I found my way back to the highway, the sun was rising behind me in muted pinks and reds, brushing the treetops like a slow bleed across the sky. My hands were still shaking. My knuckles ached from gripping the wheel so tightly. I noticed blood dried under my fingernails, dark brown, crusted in the creases of my skin. Not mine. The ringing in my ears was low, steady, like the hum of an engine I couldn't shut off. I kept replaying it, over and over. Chris's face twisted with desperation, the exact second his eyes widened when he realized I wasn't going to show mercy. The recoil of the revolver, the way his skull folded inward, collapsing in slow motion, like a melon dropped from a rooftop. There'd been a brief delay before the blood hit the ceiling, like gravity itself was stunned by what I'd done. I wanted to throw up. I really did. I felt it rise, hot acidic, but it just sat there. My body had gone numb to everything except the image burned behind my eyes. It wasn't nausea. It was paralysis, like my soul had disconnected. And it wasn't just Chris, the shack, the rusted table, the smell, the timer ticking down like a metronome in hell. Kyle's screams as his body was hacked apart, his voice gurgling when the blood filled his lungs. The way his head lolled back with nothing left to support it. Logan's brain sprayed across the wall in a perfect arc, his twitching body slumped like a puppet with its strings cut. The puddle on the floor, thick, congealing, spreading like something alive. I remember watching a drop of blood trace its way down one of the table legs. It left a path, like it had somewhere to be. And through all of it, I kept thinking the same thing. What if I had gotten there 10 minutes earlier? Just 10 goddamn minutes. What if I hadn't stopped for gas? What if I hadn't missed the turn on that dirt road? What if I'd moved faster? Would Sam still be alive? Would we be at the lake, eating burnt hot dogs and arguing about how to rig a fishing lure? I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not that there was anyone left to tell. Laura and I hadn't spoken in weeks. The last conversation we had, she'd looked at me like I was already halfway gone. You need help, David. You're falling into a hole. Her voice cracked when she said it, but she didn't cry. Not anymore. Her eyes were hollow, like all the grief had been wrung out of her. And she was right. I was falling. I just didn't care. She moved out a month after the funeral, left a note on the kitchen counter, said she couldn't keep pretending I was still in there, that every time she looked at me, she saw him, saw what we lost. I didn't blame her. I couldn't look in the mirror anymore either, not without seeing the monster growing behind my eyes. My job let me go quietly. A corporate HR email buried in a pile of unread messages. Something about restructuring and long-term impact assessments. They offered a severance package and a corporate letter full of empty well wishes. I didn't reply. I just stopped showing up. The garage became my world. I spent most days in there, alone, with the lights off. Sitting on a milk crate with a bottle of whiskey, I kept under the workbench. Sam's bike still hung on the wall, the same one that got crushed in the accident. One of the pedals was bent backward. The handlebars still had dried blood on the grips. I never cleaned it. I couldn't bring myself to take it down. It felt like the only shrine I had left. Nights were worse. The dreams started about a week later. At first, they were quiet, peaceful even. Sam would stand at the end of the hallway in our old house, wearing his backpack, smiling at me. Just standing there, hand raised in that little half wave he always did when he didn't want to look too uncool. I'd reach for him, then wake up, heart pounding, eyes wet. But the dreams changed. He'd call me, "Dad, where are you?" And I'd see flashes, fractured images scattered like glass. The intersection, the black SUV, the tire marks painted across the crosswalk, his shoe, always that fucking shoe, sitting perfectly upright in the middle of the road, like it was waiting for him to come back and step into it. Then the shack, and the table. Kyle screaming as the machete cleaved into his bones. The sound of it. Ethan's hand twitching before the gun went off. Logan's skull detonating like a firework. Chris's face caving in under the pressure of the bullet, that wet snap of tendons and teeth. Sometimes, I'd wake up and swear I could smell blood in the room. Metallic, thick, like rusted coins in boiling water. I didn't leave the house for almost a month. bills stacked up on the counter unopened. I stopped checking the mail, stopped answering the door. When the power got cut, I sold my laptop to pay the overdue balance. I didn't care. I wasn't working. I wasn't eating right. Most days, I just rummaged through the cabinets for whatever hadn't expired. Cold beans straight from the can. Dry cereal chewed in silence. I kept checking the news, refreshing every site I could think of. Nothing. No missing persons alerts. No grieving parents. No press conferences. No, have you seen these students? It was like those 3 kids never existed, like they'd been wiped off the face of the earth. Whoever the masked man was, he didn't just kill them. He erased them. No bodies. No evidence. No questions. It was surgical. Precise, like he'd done it before. It should have scared me. Should have made me feel like I was part of something monstrous. But it didn't. It just made it more real, more final, more undeniable. This wasn't a grief-fueled hallucination. It wasn't a dream. It happened. They died. Because of me. And one night, too drunk to walk straight, too broken to care, I stumbled into Sam's old room and started going through his closet. Found one of his old journals, a beat-up spiral-bound notebook with a worn-out Captain America sticker on the front. The edges were dog-eared, some pages torn from where he used to rip out notes for friends. I flipped through it, expecting silly drawings nonsense. Pages filled with math equations, short story ideas, doodles of superheroes. But then I found one page, just one, that stopped me cold. In the center, written in blocky 12-year-old handwriting, "If something ever happens to me, I hope Dad finds the people who did it. Because he always keeps his promises." That broke me. Not a quiet cry, not a single tear. I collapsed. My legs gave out. I hit the floor so hard it knocked the wind from my chest. I screamed, cursed, slammed my fists into the ground until the skin split open. I curled up like a child, like a dying animal, whispered, "I'm sorry," over and over until my throat was raw, until the words lost meaning. I had kept my promise. I'd done the thing he believed I could, but it didn't bring him back. It didn't fix anything. It just turned me into something else. Something I never meant to become. Something I don't know how to stop. This is the Curator. I hope you've enjoyed today's scary story. Until next time.